Cheers. Thank you so much for coming and
Cheers.
making time.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I want to hear all about, so I'm going to cut and we're going to start forward from now. So all the other stuff is going to be like bonus content. But I want to hear, last night was opening night for your play, The Moss Maidens. And I want to hear about how well that went because I heard it went amazing.
It was a really great opening night. I haven't done a festival process like this in quite a long time. It's really truncated rehearsal time. It's a equity showcase, so we're doing like, instead of a full 8-hour day of work, you're doing like 4 hours a day, a couple times a week, and we had a month of that for a full length, very complicated, funny, and complex play with a lot of moving parts, a lot of intimacy, and a lot of violence. So for how much text there was and how much just really intricate stage stuff we had to put together, I'm incredibly proud of us. I also haven't worked on full production in New York in a few years, and so it was just so delightful to be like, I'm riding the subway to do my show.
Yeah.
And it went really well. I felt like we told the story we set out to tell, and the audience was incredibly receptive. Should I talk about the play?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I know, okay, so I want to throw this out there.
Yeah.
By the time this airs, it will be done. So we can't advertise it, even though it's pretty much already sold out.
Yeah.
And so there's that. But will people be able to pay $5 to watch the recording of opening night for a while? Or is that going to...
I don't think so. I think it's just a limited run this weekend because of equity rules.
Okay.
We are really hoping to get to do the play again, like actively looking for the next steps for production for it. And I have a good feeling about it. It feels like a story that the world really needs to hear right now. So for those of you who don't know, The Moss Maidens is a new play. It's by Dylan Zwickel. And it's based on a true story of these Dutch schoolgirls who, during World War II, joined the resistance, seducing and killing Nazis. So there were these real women, girls. They were 14, 16, and 19 when the war started. Hani Schaft was 19. And then the sisters Truus and Freddie Overstegen, I think I'm saying their name right, I hope so, were 16 and 14. And they had all sort of come from different backgrounds of being raised in this very like liberal, anti-fascist mindset. None of them were Jewish. They just really believed that what was happening in their country was wrong and that it was their responsibility as good people to do something about it. It's incredibly inspiring.
So I saw the bag with all the characters' names. Are those names based on the actual people, or is it based on a true story with liberties taken?
Exactly,
Okay,
the
cool.
latter. So Dylan did a lot of research on the real women and then came up with her own characters inspired by them and kind of expanded it. So there are 6, it's a group of 6 girls. I play Rini, who's the youngest one, and sort of, I have temperature regulation issues, so like I was really cold and then now I'm like overheated and this is annoying. So I play Rini, who is like the youngest one, who is this idealistic romantic girl who at one point is like, well, you don't know that this Nazi could be a resistance fighter and also my soulmate. Like, that's like her perspective at the start of the show. And
love the optimism.
Right.
Right.
And so she quickly realizes that, like, no, there just is real evil in the world, and what what are we going to do about it? You know? She says, one of the things she says that I love getting to live is we all have to become someone new now, don't we? We either have to adapt and become someone who can live in their world or resist. It's like you do get a choice no matter how grim it is, right?
Yeah. And that's, I mean, World War II, that was like all of the people that resisted kind of faced one of the biggest, what do we do? Because that entire like Hitler's army, they were terrifying.
Yeah.
Like standing up to them was basically I'm going to do this and I'm going to die, but at least I'm going to die doing the right thing type thing.
Yes.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah.
It's a horror type, not horror like supernatural, but like it's like violent.
Yeah. So there's this, I mean, what they did was violent.
Right.
This play, I think, threads a really fine line of like the comedy, the genuine relationship of teenage girls. Those friendships are some of the most meaningful relationships I've had in my life. The intensity of that bonding at that age and the inside jokes and the way that they interact with each other is hilarious. And then you get the rug pulled out from under you and it's devastating what they're doing. And I think that makes it more real. So yes, there are some moments of intense violence, but there are also moments of intense joy.
How does it work with, it's only the 6 actresses in the cast, or are there...
We also have, we have one male actor who plays all the Nazis.
Okay. That was my question.
Yeah.
Are y'all like slipping into a Nazi every once in a while?
So we have one man who plays all the male roles, and then we have a young woman who plays one extra character, and then understudies all 6 of us, which is like such a big lift. She's brilliant.
Wow.
Lily
is she ready to go on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a lot.
Throughout the rehearsal process, people were sick or had other commitments, and she got to step into a few of our roles. She made it possible for me to go participate in the writing fellowship that I did last week, covering for me a couple nights of rehearsal. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Lily Ganser.
Good for her.
Yeah. And then we also have a male understudy who is doing a lot of the prop running around and sound effects. So he's on stage with us too.
Amazing.
Yeah.
When you got this and you saw everyone that you would be working with, did you notice any names that you had worked with before, or is this all brand new people?
It's kind of a funny story, actually. I was sick with the flu in May. I know, the actual flu, not COVID.
Real flu.
Influenza. The doctor was like, when I went and got tested, the doctor was like, "How did you find that?" And I was like, what are you talking about?
Went out looking.
I was like, I'm looking for some influenza.
I want the flu, but not make it spicy. I just want generic flu now.
No, authentic flu.
Okay, authentic flu.
So I was literally sick in bed with the flu, and I saw a friend that I've known since high school, but had never worked with. Her name's Daniela Caggiano. Posted about auditions that she was having as a director for the Moss Maidens, and I just liked the post. I was like, oh yeah, I love seeing, we've had like parallel careers and never got to work together, you know? And she immediately messaged me and was like, are you auditioning? And I was like, I have like 103-degree fever. I'm not leaving my bed. And she was like, well, if you're better this weekend, can you come to callbacks? And she sent me the sides. Oh, wow. And then I looked at it and I was like, oh, I had like chills all over my body because I read a news article about these women like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I was like, that would be a great play. I'm writing a different play. I don't have time to write this play. I hope someone writes this play. And I was like, oh, I remember them. Oh, I hope it's good. And I read the sides and I got through the whole packet, and then I got to the side for my character and I just started weeping. Like I knew I had to do it. So
and the chills were 100% from that, not from the 103-degree fever.
I mean, ¿por qué no los dos?
Perfect.
Yeah. So then I went to callbacks, and what was really cool was that at the callbacks, I met Mia, who's playing Miriam, and Teresa, who's playing Silka, and Caitlin, who's playing Fleur. The other two girls were already cast, so they weren't at callbacks. But the four of us started talking outside, and then we ended up being the last people to read together. And when we left, we were like, so see you next week. Like, it was just like a very immediate chemistry thing of like, we belong together.
Mm-hmm. And they're messing up if they don't grab us because...
Yeah. And it was like everyone had sort of a different connection to the material or to the team, but yeah.
Amazing. And now you're leaving with 6, 7, 8 new, like...
Really special people,
Yeah, I see you post on social media, and I don't know if I've seen cast members post about how much they, like, love each other and love working with each other as much as I've seen come out of this show.
It feels really special. I will say, I think I've had both amazing luck and been very... open to and conscientious of creating bonds with the people that I work with since the pandemic. I've always done theater. I love theater, but especially coming from like a conservatory background, growing up in New York, and then doing a lot of musical theater, there can be like a very toxic culture, right? Of like, oh, she's not getting her turn, or like kind of a kind of meanness that I really don't like and don't think belongs in an art form that is all about connection and community. And we can get into the various business reasons that exist and all this other stuff. Misogyny, I think, is part of that mix. But I had an experience before the pandemic where I felt very isolated working on a big contract, and got some advice from an older actor going into my first contract back from the pandemic. He reached out to me to be like, I hope you have a better time this time, and like really be present with the people too. Don't like, it was almost like I was making it so much about the work. I was putting so much pressure on myself that I couldn't have this connection. Mm-hmm. And shifting my focus to be like, let's get to know each other. Like, let's go out for dinner before we start rehearsals, or really connect in that way, has paradoxically, I think, made me a better artist, made the work that I do more fulfilling, and allowed this kind of synchronicity to happen. It makes space for connection.
I love that. I think coming out of lockdown, I think, like you were saying earlier, everyone kind of had a choice of which direction you want to steer out of, like, you know, coming out of isolation. Or, you know, I remember we were 4 people locked in a 2-bedroom apartment. Ooh. And for the first like 2-3 months, and we all, you know, first month it was game nights, and me looking at my best friend at 5:01 like, hey, are you ready for a beer? Because that's the socially acceptable time to crack a beer. And then by the end of month 2, I was looking at him at 11:30, and I'm like, hey man, I'm depressed and I want a beer. Do you want a beer? And
oh gosh,
like, you know, it was, you know, I think we were all going through that.
Yeah.
And then I know I definitely steered the wrong way for the first like 6 months out. And then, you know, I jumped into therapy, and that helped.
Yes.
And then I, I had to recover that 6-month gap. I had to steer back the other way and then hit 0 again and then keep going back in the right direction. But I know that was what most people were going through, isolation and depression. And, are you going to keep doing the things that make you feel isolated and depressed, or are you going to open back up and establish more intentional relationships? And he'll 100% do that.
Come here. Yeah.
And I don't remember being this fulfilled with just friendships and work and doing things that I like before lockdown.
Yeah.
So I think, blessing and a curse, a lot of not being happy in those couple years, but then also figuring it out and finding a better way to go about things. No.
I don't think that's where you can go. You can come on my lap though.
You can also
Bentley.
just pick him up. He's a rag doll. He'll let you pick him up.
I want to say one more thing about what you were just saying, which was that I also have this like pet theory that, a lot of people left theater, left the business, left New York during the pandemic. And I think what I've found over the contracts that I've been lucky to work since theater reopened is that the people who are still here really want to be here. It's like that Bachelor cliche of like, they're here for the right reasons, but like really it feels that way. So I felt like I changed, but I also see that like what you're saying, that we all did.
Yeah. And everyone's more grateful too.
Yeah.
Like I remember, because I had a show coming right back. Like my show was one of the first ones to open back up. And that first day back in the theater, everyone was, we were still in masks. We were still like freshly jabbed, and everyone like wanted to hug everyone, but we were all being a little careful.
Touch? Yeah.
And like, I know there was a lot of like long fist bumps, like facing away, and a couple people, I was a little bit more comfortable with like quick hugs. Some people weren't, but I'm like, hey, I'm good for hugs. I'm good for fist bumps, whatever you want. And a couple people came up and hugged me. And then one guy was like, I see that, I'm going to stay over here. And I'm like, there's no wrong answers. Yeah. But everyone was super excited. Even the guy that was way over there, he's like, I'm so happy to be here, but I'm happy to be here over here. And everyone was so grateful to be back. Yeah. And I think even the people, because that was my first big show. And so I was grateful to be there no matter what. But even the people that were consistently working before lockdown, they were like, I'm just happy to be back in this space. I wasn't sure if we were going to make it. And it was one of the best feelings ever to be in the space and surrounded by every single person wanted to be there. Yeah. Which is not usually the case for anything, which is wild.
Especially for something at that level. I'm like, I don't know if you've talked about this on your show before or if you'd like to share, but I would love to hear more about that experience of like having your first show out of the pandemic be also like such a career, like stepping up, like that feels like a double whammy.
It was very up and down. It was like a roller coaster because I booked it in December of 2021. Oh, wow. And then, I kept working at the restaurant, and then I put in my notice and had a couple weeks before I went into the theater. And then, did you in high school, did you ever do a play that had tech week, and then on like the Tuesday or the Wednesday, they shuttle bussed all the senior citizens from the nursing home to come watch you guys?
No, but that sounds fucking incredible.
I have asked this question so many times. This happened in my high school and in my college.
Really?
So maybe it's just a Michigan thing, but we would shuttle bus like 80 to 150 seniors to the theater to watch us do our tech show. It was free for them.
Wow.
And we had an audience on the Tuesday or the Wednesday of tech before we opened on Thursday.
That's really useful.
Yeah. Lehman Trilogy did the same thing. So I don't know why no one at anyone else's high schools or colleges are doing this, but they should. That was my last day in the theater.
Wow.
It was Tuesday or not a Monday, a Tuesday, maybe. And I remember being on the phone with my grandparents, and they were like, we want to come. We want to see your show. Get us opening night tickets. I'm like, that's not how it works. This isn't high school anymore. I can't just get you tickets. But I will try.
Yeah.
And they were like, what day should we come? And I was like on the phone pacing around the kitchen, like talking. And then New York Times refreshed, and it was Broadway is shut down. All tonight's tickets will be refunded or whatever. And whatever it said. And I'm like, okay, so you didn't book any seats on any planes yet, did you? Because you could probably just not worry about that.
Oh my God, Justin, I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's fine. It was, I remember trying to like stay with one ear to the wall on the whole Broadway and reopening. And I remember hearing about Frozen closed, and I had a friend that was in that. Well, I had someone I knew that was in that.
Yeah.
And then a couple other shows closed, and I remember thinking, God, we were selling well. I just hope that we come back in June or July, whenever this thing's done, which was not June or July.
Yeah.
But it came back, and then it wasn't like picking up right where I left off. It was better in a way, because when I started therapy, I don't know if you've done therapy or
Yes.
you know how it's kind of you kind of get worse a little bit at first as you start.
Especially if you're doing EMDR trauma therapy, it's like like causes symptoms.
Because you have to start opening
You're
up.
You're rewiring your brain.
And so that was happening. But then when I started the climb back up is when the show started doing things. So I was in a better headspace than I had been back in March before lockdown when it started the first time.
Yeah.
And I was more grateful.
Yeah.
And everyone else was more grateful. So I wouldn't pick doing it like that again with a lockdown for a year and a half and then coming back. But having said that, with it happening that way, I was very grateful and happy to be there, and didn't take any day for granted. Walked in the theater every day. Like, it was at the Nederlander, so you have to walk through the lobby and walk out into the alleyway to get to the stage door, which
That's
is
wild. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like a cool theater thing. And so, I'm walking, and it's down a long corridor, and it says stage door on the stage door, and I'm like, every day I'm just like, yeah, stage door. And then, you say hi to the guy that's working the desk, and by like week 1, he knew me by name, and he was like, hey, how you doing today, Justin? I'm like, fantastic, thank you.
Yeah.
Just happy to be here. It was great. Yeah, I don't know if you heard, but there's a possibility of Lehman Trilogy coming back.
No, I didn't hear that. That's exciting.
It was officially reported, so I'm allowed to say it.
Yay!
At Lincoln Center. Yeah.
Lincoln Center is like my dream theater. I'm like trying to manifest it for several different things. I have my first audition there next week.
Nice. What for?
I don't want to say on camera.
Fair enough. Best of luck.
Thank you. I'm just gagged that I get to like go there for an audition. I went to LaGuardia High School, which is right behind Lincoln Center, and so I have this like very sentimental attachment, and it's also my favorite collection of theater spaces in New York. Like, each one is like really cool for its own reason. That would be amazing. I hope that happens for y'all.
I hope it happens. I wonder if they're going to bring people back or if they're going to start fresh. I know it's still the same production.
Yeah.
So Sam Mendes directing. He's probably not going to be there the whole time. He's probably going to have his assistant directors do most of the work day by day. But I don't know. I'm waiting for that call.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't come, I'm okay, because then I get to go and sit in the theater and watch it from start to finish, which is something I never got to do.
Justin, you have the best attitude. It's so, like, it's like a breath of fresh air talking to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I really mean it. That's like such an incredible perspective to have.
it was a great show. I would be excited just to see it do more again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's because I know a lot of people. The run was sold out. It was 99
I didn't
shows.
get to see it.
It was no, most people didn't. It was
Stay hydrated.
yeah. It was one of those that came and went so quickly. And I remember I remember my buddy works as a yeah, he does that.
Wow, Bentley. King Arthur's gonna be not pleased.
I have
my cat.
I have a lint roller.
Oh,
Can
that's okay.
take care before you get out. My buddy is a pretty successful photographer and DP out in LA.
Oh, cool.
And sometimes he gets jobs in New York, and he came here to shoot a promotional package for Mr. Saturday Night with Billy Crystal.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, I'm doing this. This is going into your theater after your show. And I'm like, I did not know that. I was hoping for an extension. But now that Billy Crystal is coming back to Broadway, that's a virtual
It's
no
like, well,
chance in
now I
hell.
know.
Yep.
Now I know.
Now
Yeah.
it's January 2nd, done.
Cool.
For me, it was December 23rd, done.
Yeah.
Because I got COVID on
I remember
yeah.
I
Yep.
reached out to you on Instagram because I was like, oh man, that's
Yeah.
such a bummer.
It was exactly 10 days before closing. And 10 days was the amount of time. Like, if
Yeah.
you test positive, come back in 10 days. And I remember I tested negative 3 days later.
Oh,
But it was so backed up because it was holiday season.
Yeah.
I didn't get the results until 2 days after the play closed. So I tested negative on the 27th. I got the results on the 4th in an email.
that's rude. Yeah.
It was so frustrating because I could have emailed that along, and like if they said, oh, we don't trust this lab, and I'm like, send me to your lab again.
Yeah, I'll
see what the situation is, and they'll be like, okay, or not, but we never know.
This cat is such a lover.
He is. Except there is one episode I recorded where he was getting very playful in an aggressive way, and so I needed to lock him out.
Oh no.
Yeah, he's okay though.
He's so handsome.
Yeah, he got a good face. Okay, playwriting fellowship, writing a play.
Yeah.
What are you willing to share?
I will share a bunch. So I feel like for a lot of my life, I felt like I had to choose between writing and performing. And one of the gifts of the pandemic was like time to write, which started with me writing like three or more poems a day for like a year straight. Like I could not stop writing. And it wasn't like I set out to do that. It was like they wouldn't stop coming out of me. And then the more that I did it, the more I was like, okay, well, what if I try this form or try that form? And then I got connected with this group of poets that do typewriter poetry. And so I started writing poems for other people and doing that.
At House of Yes, right?
Among other places.
Among other places.
But
That's
that
the one
was-
I noticed.
That was
Yeah.
really cool for me because I had gone through a phase right before the pandemic of being like, I've been such a goody two-shoes my whole life. I want to go out dancing. I want to get dressed up. I want to like try this other mode of being. And so House of Yes became like a place that was really dear to my heart. And so then after not being able to go there during the pandemic, to go back as an artist was incredibly meaningful to me. And getting to write poems for other people, I think has been the greatest writing teacher that I could ask for. And I have some really good ones too. I will, like, my playwriting mentor, his name is Mark Shanahan. I love him, highly recommend him. He has a new play, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, which just had its world premiere at the Alley Theater a couple of nights ago. So yay, Mark.
Yay.
But learning by like hearing what somebody else is going through and then translating their heart into a poem, I feel like has given me so many tools as a playwright to step into other perspectives and tell stories that way. when I was really little, I wanted to be a novelist. Maybe I'll come back to that at some point. But I was always kind of afraid to write shows. And I think it was just I love theater so much that it just felt like untouched. I can't write a play. Shakespeare wrote plays.
Right.
Whatever. So, but I had written this short film before the pandemic, and we fundraised $10K in February of 2020. We started filming on March 13th.
Oh, that date.
Yep.
That date.
The next day we had the
forever.
day off, and I was packing my bag to go to set for the next morning at 10 p.m. and I got the phone call from our director saying 2 people on set tested positive for COVID, so we are going to we can't finish making this film. We did end up finishing it over the pandemic, but it was 9 months until we finished filming, and then another year before it was all put together, and we showed it at festivals, and that all went really well, and I was grateful for it. And it was oh, well, if I can, film is not I love acting on film, but it wasn't ever my goal or my first love. If I can write a film, I guess I probably could write a play. So during the pandemic, I took a playwriting class with Mark at the Jen Waldman studio. And
As a fellow student, or he taught it?
He taught it.
Okay.
Yeah. And so taking that class, I was working on a libretto based on my Cuban family's history, which I just started working on again. I took a long break from it because I had partnered with a composer and that didn't work out. But I'm excited to see where it goes this time, especially now that I've gone to visit Cuba. So that's one of my projects. And then the play that I have been submitting for fellowships and things like that is called Smalls and Talls. It's a 2-woman duet that is a meditation on what it means to be a good friend. And it explores issues of class and race in the theater industry and in our world in general. And then I have a few I'm always reading a bunch of books at the same time and writing a bunch of different things at the same time. So I have a couple of other plays that I'm working on that are less developed. But that one is a finished full-length play. Yeah.
Smalls and Talls.
Smalls and Talls, yeah.
Play with music or no music?
There are a couple of cute musical moments. Actually, that was one of the things that I was trying to figure out this last week at the fellowship, which was the Latinx Playwriting Circle's inaugural summer jam. So the Latinx Playwriting Circle is a group of Latinx writers across the diaspora. They do all sorts of things for the community. They host these bi-monthly sort of writer salons where you bring in 10 pages and get to read them out loud and do that kind of work. They produce readings, all sorts of stuff like that. It's a great community to be a part of. And this was the first time that they've hosted a fellowship workshop retreat thing. And it was co-sponsored with the Dramatists Guild. So we were based out of the Mary Rogers Room at the Dramatists Guild, and we got to meet with and learn from some of the people at the Guild, which was that was a lot of business stuff that I had never considered or thought, or that I found really intimidating. Getting to learn about that perspective of how do you protect your work and what do you ask for as a writer? How involved can you or do you want to be in the rehearsal process? And one of the things was if you're going to write music into your play, you have to get those rights. And how do you go about doing that for that first production, but then also like how are you going to get the rights going forward for people to be able to license the play, at a community theater in 10 years or whatever.
Makes it more complicated.
Right. But music is a really effective tool for communication. There's a musical moment in the play that I'm in right now that's been cool to see that process as an actor, watching the playwright work it out and see her, try these verses of the song. It's the Dutch national anthem, which is like 16 verses long. And it really works dramatically. But we had to figure out how to sing that in English because who would sing that anthem in English, right?
Right.
So I got one of my music director friends to set it.
Do they sing all 16? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No. I sing a little bit in Act 1, and then we all sing a little bit in Act 2.
Oh, okay.
No spoilers, sorry.
No spoilers. We know the Dutch national anthem. We know there are 2 acts. We know that one guy plays a bunch of Nazis, and that's what we know.
There's a lot of violence.
A lot of violence.
And a lot of intimacy.
Yeah. And that's what we know. In my show, I remember the director was talking about how, because it's the 3 main actors who play all of the Lehmans and all of their wives and all of their sons and all of the different boardroom executives towards the end. And so it's 3 actors. But he also said that the music was like a 4th because all of because it's music throughout, not as an underscore, like start to finish, but scene changes and intense moments. And so, you have the 3 actors, and then you had the different pianists that were like the 4th that was not on stage, but like the piano kind of was up a little bit above the stage, and then the pianist was like just a little bit below. So it was always...
Wait, what?
So it
How
wasn't...
do you play
it
that
wasn't,
way?
It wasn't down in the pit.
Okay.
But it was like on the side of the stage, present enough for you to always be able to see it.
Okay.
I'll show you a picture at some
that's
point.
giving me like an idea for the Cuban thing that I'm working on.
Interesting. So you said it's a libretto.
Yes. So...
And you're a great singer.
Thank you.
And so with singing, which I can't do, I would imagine, but I can't do well.
Okay.
With singing, which I can't do. I would love to work on that. That's one of those things I would love to be able to do.
Yeah.
Are you a vocal coach?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll talk.
Yeah.
I don't have a firm grasp on music. I don't play any instruments. You see the guitar up on the wall. I don't know how to play it yet. I'm working on it.
It's just decoration.
I used to. So my dad has a guitar that's actually just decoration, and my mom kept trying to give me that. I'm like, no, I'm not. It's his guitar. He said, like, maybe when he finally stops working so much, he'll finally pick it up, and I don't want to take it away so that he loses that opportunity. So she got me my own.
Oh,
and
that's
now
very sweet.
It is, but now it sits there, and with the restaurant or with the bar job, I don't have the energy to like learn a new skill, but I'm hoping that when this picks up enough, that I'll have a little bit more time. But all this to say, I don't have a firm grasp on music enough to write it. Are you writing the music for this? Okay.
No. Right now where I've landed on that, what I've landed on with that project is I'm just going to write the libretto, meaning I'm going to write a play and know that in certain places I want songs. And I was really inspired when I went to Cuba by the music that was in the streets everywhere. It's just, I thought I understood from like growing up with the culture through my dad and my tia and I called my grandmother Buba because I couldn't say abuela when I was little. So then I always hesitate in like public because I'm like, I can't, no one knows what you mean by booba, but if I say abuela, that's like feels inauthentic. So sometimes I say abuelita, but like booba.
Mm-hmm.
My booba was my like main caregiver until I was about 7. She lived with us and then moved away for her health. And so growing up with that kind of cultural understanding of like music is part of every day. My parents are both amateur jazz musicians. So those are my fondest memories of childhood, is like going to sleep listening to them just jamming in the background. My mom is like, she plays like 7 different instruments. And then my dad is a self-taught guitarist and singer. And yeah, but then being in Havana and like hearing the different types of music that just are like the city breathes music. And there are all of these gorgeous songs in the Cuban tradition that are in the public domain. They're like, hundreds of years old. So my thought right now is that I will probably be using some of those like really traditional songs. And then there are a few places where I'm like, I do want original music here, and I will cross that bridge when I get to it, but I'm going to write the show first instead of what I was doing before was trying to find somebody to write with, and it's my family story, so I should just write it.
Who knows it better than you?
Right.
Except maybe them, but
well, a lot of them are gone now.
But you have direct access to the people that aren't, and
and it is it's inspired by. It's not about them. But my tia Petucha was she was a dancer at the Tropicana. Do you know? Okay. So for those of you who don't know, the Tropicana was this. It is still in. I got to see a show there. It is this famous nightclub on the outskirts of Havana that's like in the jungle, basically. It's like under the stars. It's the cabaret under the stars is what they bill it as. It's like open air arena with like table seating and a crazy 2-hour dance and song extravaganza.
Sounds beautiful.
And in the 1950s, my aunt, when she was 15, became a dancer there. And it was a huge scandal. So it's kind of inspired by her journey to then come to America as a performer. And then my grandmother, who was a seamstress and ended up providing for her family by teaching other people how to sew and running her own shop out of her living room. So, and then all of my plays in some way, I'm realizing now, deal with time and memory. So it's going back and forth between the present day and the past, and time travel through dreams. The term magic realism, like some people love it and some people hate it. I feel like it's really useful to describe my understanding of reality, which is what I apply to what I write. There's magic in the world, and there's the reality that we can see and touch and taste and hear, and they coexist. And I like to write about that intersection. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
It sounds amazing.
Thank you.
You said all of your writing, how does is it Smalls and Talls?
Smalls and Talls.
Yeah.
Okay, so Smalls and Talls takes place on one day. It's these 2 best friends reuniting after time apart. Because of the pandemic, although I'm thinking about taking that element out of it, but a long separation, reuniting on a hike. And so you see them take this hike, but you also travel back through time with them and see their memories of other New Year's days that they've had together.
So I had a thought, and it's so much fun to find out that I was wrong. I was thinking, I'm like, oh wow, this is such, because you were talking about all the shows kind of in quick succession. I'm like, it's so weird. None of these are similar to each other, because it seems like a lot of people who are writers write
the same story over and over.
Yeah. And not that these are by any means the same story, but there is something that kind of weaves through them in a way, not in a way that is by any means negative. I mean this is a positive thing. It's such a cool underlying kind of connection for all of them.
I'm always very curious, like, why is this a play and not a movie, or a musical and not a play, or why is it a series of I have a poetry book that I'm in the process of trying to publish.
I was gonna say 3 a day for a year. That's over 1,000 poems.
I don't think it's quite that. I think it was like, you know, there are gaps there, but I have a notes folder, and the notes folder is at 500.
Notes, so, like the app on your...
Yeah. I have a notes folder of just poems, and that's at 500, but they're not all there, so I don't... Yeah, there's a lot. Not that many in the book.
I mean, I've seen some thick poetry books. I've seen some big ones, but...
Wait, so what I was saying was I'm really curious about, like, what idea wants to sing through me in what form. And I feel like I'm a huge Sondheim lover and nerd, and one of his sort of rules for writing was content dictates form. So for whatever reason, these ideas to me need to be on stage. So there's that connecting thread that they need to be on stage. And that doesn't mean they can never be adapted, but
if it's successful enough, someone's going to want to make money off of it and
right.
make it a movie.
And also, I think some of my ideas, I'm like, oh yeah, I see that could be a TV show or that could be a movie, and like, cool, we'll get there. That's not how I want to tell this story first, but it is possible. And then, so there's that connecting thread. There's the connecting thread that part of the reason I wanted to write for theater specifically is that there are just so few roles written for young women of color, mixed race people in general, specifically mixed race women. And I was really tired of realizing that there wasn't that space for me at the table, and for my younger self, and for my niece. My eldest niece is a performer as well, and
how old?
She just turned 21. My brother's a lot older than I am, and he became a father quite young.
Closer in age, like a sister, but
yes, I feel like more
so
like
you're
a big
the cool
sister to her.
Then.
Yes,
yeah.
I try to be. But
you just opened a show last night that sold out for its whole run. First show in 8 years in the festival to get an extended. You're the cool aunt.
Oh, thank you. Well, she's the cool niece. She's playing Hero in Much Ado at Nashville Rep right now, so I'm very proud of her. Cool, yeah, she's in their intern company.
I got that right? First show in 8 years.
Yes, you did get that right. I was
I was saying it, and I'm like, I am sounding so confident, and I am 70% certain I'm getting it right. Okay,
you nailed cool. It. Wait, okay, so there's like no alcohol in there, and I'm already like, wait, what was I saying? I'm always like, what was I saying anyway? Oh, the connecting threads in my writing. I tell a lot of love stories on stage. So that makes its way into my writing. I feel like I make this joke all the time, but I'm going to make it anyway. Like, I'm professionally good at falling in love. I might not be good at it personally. Like, I have kind of a terrible track record at this point, but I'm professionally really good at falling in love. And so there's that aspect. I'm always interested in like, but like, where's the love in the story? Like, where's the, is that like eternal optimism thing that I share with the character that I'm playing right now, Rini, of like, the world can be beautiful and we should look for that beauty. Mm-hmm. So there's that thread. And then the time thread for me is like, I have pretty severe ADHD, and one of the things that comes with that is time blindness. So my understanding of the passage of time is fundamentally, this is fucking adorable. Wow. I'm so glad that it's okay to curse on this.
Yeah. This is actually the co-host, but he has not signed a contract, so he comes and goes as he pleases.
Oh. Well, I'm glad that he decided to make an appearance today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know that my understanding of time is different from the majority of the world, and because of that, I'm really fascinated by it, and I don't know, I like to play with that in my writing. I think time is sort of the universal antagonist in all our lives. Like, we only get so much time. Now I'm quoting Moss Maidens. We only get so much time alive, you know, we shouldn't have to spend it this way. But yeah, we only get so much time alive, and what do you do with it, and how do you use it? But also, if you're so aware of it, then you're not going to be enjoying it, which is I think a big lesson that I learned in the last year personally, of like, it's actually a worthwhile use of your time to just have fun. Mm-hmm. That's deeply important too, as much as the work is. This is so cute. My brain has ceased functioning. What's happening?
His hind legs will push my hand away, but he'll grab them with his front legs. And I don't know. It's just what he does. He's also throwing off heat like a generator. So but like, look at the face.
But he's weird. Look at the eyes.
Yeah.
Oh, he's so loud too.
Yeah.
I hope the mic's picking him up.
He's a good egg. Check on time. Oh, we're doing great. Okay, good, because I did want to get to this.
Oh, great.
You said you want to write for the stage because you don't feel like you had a lot of opportunities with representation.
Yeah.
And to write for your niece. I remember a few weeks ago, maybe longer now, with the Funny Girl casting.
Oh, yeah.
So because you're Cuban, you're African American, and you're Jewish.
Yeah. So my dad is a black man from Cuba, and my mom is Ashkenazi Jewish, which is like a type of a type of ethnicity that is very white presenting. I feel like I've said what I want to say about Funny Girl. Like, I'm not personally involved, and I feel a little like, I don't know. My perspective on authenticity in casting is the places where it's really important to let people tell their own stories are places where people have been marginalized and oppressed. And all of my identities sort of fall under that umbrella. So for me, that's pretty personal. But also I walk through the world with a lot of privilege, especially compared to like personal family. Like, I'm very light-skinned, and I'm very aware of that, the day-to-day privilege that affords me. And also, I've experienced a lot of, I was going to just say microaggressions, but a lot of different forms of racism and anti-Semitism, which is horrifically on the rise and is one of the reasons that I believe the play we're doing is so important. It's written by a Jewish woman. We have a Jewish playwright. We have 2 Jewish actresses in the cast not playing Jewish characters, and then we have a character who's half Jewish in the play. And for me, that's an example of where, because there are Jews involved on every level creatively telling this story about the Holocaust, but the focus isn't on, like, the main characters are not Jewish. It is, to me, pretty revolutionary to have Jewish women playing these Dutch girls. Like that feels very important to me, to be telling a story of like fighting back, not to be telling the story of being oppressed, but of rising up. And so that's like one example of how you can be conscientious of identity when casting and have it not be, and also like where we have several different ethnicities represented in our cast, and that feels also like that's part of a much more conscious casting process. For a lot of Jewish people, I think what was upsetting about the Funny Girl casting is that that is a story about a woman who was treated very poorly for being Jewish, for looking Jewish ethnically, for her mannerisms being Jewish, and then used that to create a career for herself. She used all of the things that were made fun of and looked down upon about herself for her identity and made them something to be celebrated at a time when that just what it hadn't been done before. She's a Jewish heroine, and casting someone who isn't Jewish in that role at this time, especially to go on tour across America when anti-Semitism is on the rise. And I've toured across America, and I've been in places where I was the first Jew that people met because I was there touring to do like, Seussical the musical.
That's, I mean, it surprises me when I don't think about it, but then I think about how New York is kind of like a bubble in a way.
Yeah.
And so, if you go to, I don't know, Wisconsin or Minnesota or somewhere.
Or Texas.
Texas, yeah.
And so for me, having someone who isn't Jewish playing an iconic Jewish role and representing that culture, because it's not just going on stage to tell the story every night, it's also doing interviews and talking about your connection to the role, and I've experienced that as an actor. And then the day-to-day interactions of like meeting people at the stage door and all of that. She won't actually be representing.
Yeah.
And for me personally, as a Jewish woman of color, like, you could have cast a Jewish woman of color. We exist, and I didn't go out for the role. It's not like it truly is not a personal thing for me. It's just like that feels like a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah.
That it's sad, and it also feels like, I don't know why. I don't want to be pitting people against each other, and I wish we could uplift other communities. And I just want to add, I also had a lot of my Latina family, like not family, but familia, like people in the industry, reach out to me and be like, thank you for speaking about this. You changed my perspective, or like I didn't understand that. And that was really meaningful. So I'm really grateful to the people who are open to having the conversation and learning about it.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like a misstep, especially when I know probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people are going out for those jobs, and it's it's not a new thing for a casting to come out and for them to drop the ball on representation, and it seems like every time casting does, they say we're working on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that they are. But this seems like, it's not looking for 40 talented like Moulin Rouge is a very dance intensive show.
Right.
And if you were to tell me you needed only one specific category of ethnicity and only women or only men, you needed 40. I heard it was a very difficult show to cast. I get that, but like,
Yeah.
you can find one person. I think. I don't know. I might be wrong. I wasn't behind the table on that, but I don't know. I think, or at least I hope. I feel like it's kind of a one step or two step forward, one step back kind of thing with getting the representation right in.
Well, I hope it is 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because that means we are making progress.
Yes.
You know?
But in times like that, it doesn't feel very progressy.
It's too much heat for you.
I'm sweating. I don't know if you can see all the hair.
You're covered in fur.
Yeah. I lint rolled before this. My hand actually.
Oh my God, your hand.
Are you mad at me for putting you down? I'm sorry.
You can come sit with me.
Yeah, see, this is where he gets annoyed.
Bentley.
Because he was comfy. Okay. On a lighter note.
Oh, yay.
Do you have anything coming up after Moss Maiden? Do you have a next project or something personal that you would like to start working on after you have a little bit more time?
Yeah, I mean, like, so this is me being like, yeah, so I had a whole plan for August, and that's been kind of thrown out the window. So right now, my goal is to like move and find like my like set up an apartment. I think I'm gonna use this time to write. I do have through the Summer Jam Fellowship, we were all invited to participate in this thing called the Soul Fest. So the Soul Project was a project that was conceived in order to produce a series of plays by Latine writers, and they now do this festival I believe it's at the end of every August. This will be my first time attending and participating. I was out of town last August, and so I was really jazzed about this. So I got invited to do that. So I'm going to contribute a piece to their monologue night. I'm not sure which day of the fest it is, but I know that fest is the last weekend of August. So the 27th, 28th, 29th. And so one of my tasks next week is to look at Smalls and Talls and see if there's a monologue in there that I want to share and perform, or if I want to do a scene from a different play that I'm working on. So that's coming up. I have a few like singing at a fundraiser, like that, those kinds of little gigs. And then I'm scheduled to go back to Denver in October, end of October through December, to do A Christmas Carol again.
Yay.
Yeah. Which will be really interesting. I've never done that. I've never done a remount of a production before.
Same production, same everything.
Production. I don't think it'll be exactly the same cast. I know we were all invited back, but some people have moved on to other gigs like Broadway or have something else lined up for that slot. That'll be an interesting experiment for me, because I've done the same role, 2 different roles I've done twice now. Maria in West Side Story and Luisa in The Fantastics, but those were both completely new productions with new creatives, new cast, like totally different scenarios. So. Okay.
2 things. 2 separate things. Okay. Smalls and Talls. Yeah. You're writing it. Are you writing yourself into one of those characters? Am I allowed to ask that question?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I think I probably will play Talls. That was my intent when I first started writing, and I'm like going through it in my mind. Yeah, I think I am writing a role for myself in everything I'm writing.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, tell me about your writing.
I have a few different things that I've written part of. I have a very I so in therapy, you know, if you're afraid of something, you know, small amounts of exposure to it and talking about it and
Feel the fear and do it anyway.
I don't have a fear of writing or acting or anything like that. My biggest fear is death. Which is not uncommon.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big one. And so I am writing a series. Right now, they're 11 to 17, 18 pages. So like maybe 10, 12-minute web series episodes.
Fun. Yeah.
But then I wrote another one. That's the one I'm excited about.
Okay.
This one I wrote, and I did the same thing where I wrote myself as a character, and then I wrote all of my friends as characters.
Oh, yeah.
And I just used their names. And then the idea was when I need to go back and edit, I'll change the names.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, Bobby was a character, and Bobby is my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go back and I would change his name to Steve or something. But it would be easy for me because I know Bobby in real life, and so I can write him I can take things that I know he said and put them in, and they make sense to me.
Yeah.
So I do that all the time. That was a show.
What was that?
That's my GoPro shutting off because it's overheating.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Is it really that hot in here? It doesn't feel that hot in
here. It doesn't
here.
feel that hot. That one is a little closer to the window.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
Do we need a pause or?
And I took that note and I ordered one on Amazon immediately, even though we don't like Amazon.
I was just having this conversation last night.
It's a means to an end. I also don't know where else to buy a slate.
Yeah.
I could look it up.
Yeah, I feel like there are places in New York, but it's also, for me, it's like is it going to get done question, which is like a serious question that you have to ask yourself when you have ADHD. It's like sometimes the most expedient option is the most ethical because it's treating yourself with compassion, even if it's not like more globally ethical. I am researching something that can replace Amazon in my life. I haven't found it yet, but
there's also a little
open
bit,
to suggestion.
There's also a little bit of I listen to a few different podcasts that have on different like psychologists and people that are big into like neurohacking and whatnot. And one of the big things is, you know, before you can solve bigger problems that are outside of yourself, like get your own stuff in order. And sometimes Amazon is just cheaper.
Yeah.
And so, you know, financially, I'm trying to get rid of a couple credit cards right now. And I'm trying to start saving up because I want to do a couple bigger things. And so, you know, if I said I'm not going to use Amazon, but every purchase I make is $6 or $7 more expensive because I'm not doing that. Like paper towel, I could get a 30 pack for like $26 or
oh wow,
or I can spend $2.29 on each roll.
Yeah.
You know, like when I am more financially stable and I've got everything more like locked in with my own life, then I can start doing the bigger things and you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Doesn't feel great, but it goes back to the same thing of, you know, you have to take care of yourself and be compassionate with yourself.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we kind of throw ourselves under the bus with the intent of helping others.
It's just, I don't know, does this happen to you when you're in a show where like everything goes back to like the show and the character that you're working on? Because for me, it's like, well, that's one of the superpowers of ADHD, right? Is this kind of spiderweb thinking. So everything connects for me. There's no, it's much harder to compartmentalize. So like that idea of like, sometimes you have to take care of yourself before you take care of the world. I feel like that's one of the things that my character is struggling to learn or understand or to figure out, you know, how to do.
Do you think it's something that you also personally struggle with?
Maybe a little bit. Yeah.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
I don't think
how to care for yourself and also how to care for the world, and to what degree do you want to show up as a caretaker for other people, for society.
Yeah, because I think all good people want to, you know, help out and take care. And I think we just sometimes put ourselves last. Mm-hmm. And instead of even like second or third or fourth, like I know that I did that for a while. I put myself last, and the consequence was in trying to help out or be there for other people, was bringing such a lesser quality version of myself to that I wasn't actually being helpful or there for them anymore, because I wasn't taking care of myself. And so the quality of the product sounds like a non-personal term, but like
the quality of the product,
the quality of
the Justin product.
The quality of what I was bringing was so low that it was almost as if I wasn't even bringing it at all. Mm-hmm. And so I think, you know, that's one of the big things coming out of lockdown and going back to that, like, which way do you want to go? And with therapy, kind of going back the other way and choosing openness and relying on people and friendship and love and all of that. I think I don't ever want to be in a position where the version of myself that I bring to people is not worth bringing to them again.
Well said.
Thanks. Took 3.5 years to figure that one out. And that's that I know of.
Yeah.
That's
the time that you were aware that you were working on it.
That's the time. So with therapy, I thought that I started becoming depressed in lockdown. Mm-hmm. And then with therapy, I learned that I was depressed way before that.
Mm-hmm. I find that is often the case. That's my experience with the depressive episodes I've had. I will share that I came out of one I spent the beginning of this year coming out of one that I think was kicked off by having COVID last summer. But I didn't become aware of it until the fall. And it was like, oh, I've been sitting in this room and the lights have been off this whole time. And that's why I'm up. Like, I didn't, not having that. It was like kind of shitty circumstances that made me realize what was happening. It was sort of like everything was going right in my life and I was unhappy and I couldn't figure out. I didn't even notice until it was pointed out to me in a not great way. And then that, I think, made it harder to pick up the pieces. But also, I already had a therapist and I felt like I had a lot of tools at my disposal. So. Yeah.
That's a big part of it. I remember I was talking to my therapist when I was kind of going into a depressive couple weeks. And he was like, yeah, I'm picking up on that. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I think I've got a better understand. I was thrilled that I was able to clock it.
Yeah. And a couple weeks sounds like a quick turnaround.
Thank God. Like, I was able to turn it around. I don't know if you noticed, like, I've got Post-its like all over the place. That's like a big thing for me, is I don't know how to follow a morning routine. Oh my God. And so I put up Post-its with everything that I need to do. I've got 5 or 6 next to my bed. I've got 3 or 4 in the kitchen, right, like at the cabinet right next to my refrigerator. So, you know, the fridge and that cabinet are my 2 most used things. Part of my morning routine is I knock out all the dishes that are in my sink. And so thankfully every morning there's only like a few things in there. It's never overflowing because it's always empty by the end of the morning. And so I've got a couple Post-its above there. And then I've got a couple in the bathroom. that are like brush your teeth and floss and use mouthwash. 'Cause if I don't see that, then I'll just brush my teeth and I won't floss or use mouthwash. Like it's my go-to thing that kind of keeps me honest. And then that way, if I brush my teeth and then I'm done and I'm like about to turn the light off, I look at it and I'm like, okay, fine. What's another minute? And then I do those two things.
I maybe when I'm in my own space again, I will try Post-its. I tend to. It's frustrating to me personally that I am this way, but I have this like pervasive drive for autonomy. So like even reminders from myself, I find like restricting, and then they become kind of, they have the opposite effect. So they're like, I feel like that Post-it note might not work for me. What has been working for me is being like, here's like a menu of things that I can do to make my morning feel good long term. So like not just it feels good first thing to like roll over and check your phone. No, that feels good maybe in the moment. Yeah. That's why people do it. It's like a quick source of dopamine, but it doesn't feel good long term. So things that feel good long term are immediately getting out of bed and either doing a cold shower or like a cold compress, cold therapy first thing, sunlight right away, like a walk in the summertime anyway.
Yeah.
In the winter, I use the sun lamp. Coffee and journaling. I like to work out. I work out pretty obsessively because it helps with ADHD.
Same, minus the ADHD thing.
Yeah.
I was going 6 days a week there for a minute.
Yeah.
And my gym, you might be interested to know, has cold plunges. I know.
I don't go to a gym. I have like weights at home and stuff, but that's enough to tempt me. Where's your gym?
53rd and Lex. It's called Temple.
Oh my God, that's so out of the way. I would never go to that.
It is.
But do they have a guest pass? I want to try out this cold plunge. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, you don't even need to go when I'm there.
What?
I can just say, hey, I've got a guest. She has an opposite schedule of me. She's going to come in. I'll give them your name. And then you'll go in and be like, hey, I'm so-and-so's guest. And they're like, yeah, we've been expecting you.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah. But they have I can't recommend this place enough. They've got a dry sauna, a steam room, a hot tub, a cold plunge.
Justin, are you serious? I will go tomorrow before my show.
Which one turned off?
This one.
Oh no.
I think. What's happening? Are we cursed?
They're just overheating. We're also at that like 70-minute mark. So
great. We didn't even talk about the show, but I don't mind.
That's okay. We will come back and do this again.
When I book my solo show again, because I want to do it either in October before I leave or in January when I come back. I had wanted to do it again this year, but I kind of dropped the ball.
Take it because that one's still going. So we just won't. This was the direct on you angle. Okay. And so we'll just keep it in the wide.
Great.
Like go for it.
So my solo show is called Ingenuity. I mentioned a little bit my like joke about being professionally good at falling in love, but I put together this solo cabaret show, sort of exploring what it means to be an ingenue in musical theater. That's the character that I know you know this, but I feel like not a lot of people do. So an ingenue is the young romantic lead of a play or a musical. And that's often telling a story of like falling in love for the first time or love at first sight. And I was exploring both the challenges, the restrictions that come with playing a character that is often valued for her looks and her youth. Like the idea that those characters are valued less, even as they are made the center of the story. And then also the gifts that come with playing those kind of roles, like the wide-eyed wonder, the joy, of telling those stories. So singing from roles that I've done and also roles that I want to do, and then kind of exploring what coming into my own as a woman of color and like getting more in touch with my identity has meant to me in telling those stories as well. So we have like a lot of musical theater music in there, and then some jazz to honor that part of my upbringing, and some really cool Cuban tunes.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you're hoping to bring this back?
Yeah. So we did my music director is Drew Watke, who is just brilliant. He did all of these incredible arrangements. We did the premiere of that at Chelsea Table and Stage in March, and my hope is to do it at like 54 Below or Joe's Pub, like one of those bigger venues.
Love Joe's Pub.
That's kind of a big fish, but I feel like the jazz and Cuban musical aspect of it might be appealing to them.
Yeah.
So, hi. Hello again. Yeah. So do it at one of those venues, and I'd love to bring the show to some theaters around the country. So I'm going to see if I have some updates on that for you.
Yeah. Well, we still have one working camera. Dream role. Like, if you could, is it, so I think I saw something online. Is it Guinevere from Camelot, or is
That's one of them.
That's one of them.
And honestly, it's just because I have auditioned for that a couple of times recently. So then it was like, oh yeah, anything Julie Andrews has done, right. I want to sing. That's like where my voice is the happiest. Sorry, did you have more of a question there, or?
I guess if you had to pick an all-time like one, which I know is a loaded question, especially if you know a lot and you're good at singing, which means it's realistic for you to actually like play one of these roles, then.
Well, I will say a big dream of mine is to originate a leading role on Broadway. I haven't been on Broadway yet, but it feels like could be
probably by the time this airs, which means I'll just have to cut this part out or like go in
from your mouth to God's ears.
Go in.
Is that one
dub.
shutting off too?
No, that one.
Okay, bye.
Go in and dub and be like, did you see Barbie yet?
Yes.
So it'd be like the voiceover where it's like, note to the production crew, if you want to make this point, don't cast Margot Robbie. It's like,
I can't believe you just compared me to that moment in the film, which was like one of my favorite moments in the film.
It was so good. But I would go in and be like, hey, note to the audience, she did book Broadway, so I don't know what she's talking about. Okay, let's continue.
So that's one of my big dreams, is to originate a role. And it could be in a revival, but to be the person who gets to set the role on Broadway and in the cast recording and all of that. Theater is such an ephemeral art, and to be part of the record, part of what people look back on as like that was the show, I think would be really meaningful to me as an artist. So there's that dream, and then there's like stories that I really want to tell. Muddy and West Side Story was one of them, and like I still want to. That's one that I would go back to anytime. It just feels good to tell that story and to sing that role. Why am I going blank? Clara in The Light in the Piazza. I love that show so much. And then one day I want to play Margaret, the mother. I have, aside from West Side Story, I've never done a Sondheim show. So he wrote the lyrics, but not professionally anyway. I did some Sondheim in high school and college. So I would love to play Cinderella in Into the Woods. I would love to play Joanna in Sweeney Todd. Anne in A Little Night Music. He wrote a lot of really interesting, complicated ingenues. I love Shakespeare, and I haven't gotten to do that professionally in a long time. So that would be amazing. Oh, there's a play by Nilo Cruz called Anna in the Tropics that I just love, and I've been in for a bunch, and I've not booked, and it's very, very dear to my heart. It's about Cuban immigrants, so there's that. I feel like there's something else that I'm gonna be kicking myself that I couldn't say. Yeah, it'll come to me and I'll be embarrassed. I feel like that's a question that always stumps me, and you get asked it like talking to agents or whatever, and I'm just like, mostly it's whatever's in front of me at the moment. Like right now I'm like, I just want to play Rini on Broadway.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
end
that long.
Someone should
produce the Moss Maidens.
Put it on a big stage.
Yeah.
And how many in the house for Moss Maiden right now?
I think 93. They took out the front row. We're kind of using that space.
Not another spoiler. What? Now we know a few more things, but I'm not going to recap them. You have to listen to the whole episode if you want to know them all. Okay. I think that's a great place to end.
Yeah. I know what it was.
What was it?
Okay. The other thing that is crazy to me that I've never done professionally, I've never done a Rodgers and Hammerstein show. And like that music, again, it just like feels good to me to sing. Mm-hmm. Like all of that classic stuff. Guys and Dolls. Again, that's not R&H, but all of that wheelhouse, that era of music.
South Pacific, George M.,
yeah.
42nd Street.
Now you're naming dance shows, which I don't do. But.
I don't dance. I'm naming all of the shows of that era. I just named the 4 that my high school did. My 4 years. That's all I did is name the ones that I was familiar with.
But yeah, there's some great music there that I would love to sing. Yeah.
Perfect. I can't wait to have this to look back on and be like, hey, she did 60% of what she said she wanted to do. 100% seems unrealistic. That's way too.
Well, if we did 100%, I wouldn't have time to do my own writing.
Yeah, that's way too many things. You named 20 roles. That's too many. And I'm not going to be looking back on this 50 years from now when you actually do it 100%. I'm going to look back in like 10 years when you do like 50, 60%.
Well, I thank you. Thank you for the vote of confidence. I appreciate that.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for spending time. I really appreciate it.
This was really fun.
Good. Yay. Perfect. That
is a wrap?
That's a wrap.